Hello, 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 and welcome to this special edition of the Cheap Seats, where we'll be discussing all things European Super League, whether you like it, whether you don't, whether it should go away and the team should be banned. What should the other entities do with the Super League? We were all surprised by it, and we'll get into it as the show goes on. We'll still have our normal show later on in the week. But for now, we thought got Dean, I've got AB on either side of me to discuss this. We all have different views about it. I'm slightly more excited than the rest. I think this is going to be fun. It's a great opportunity to see Arsenal play these big teams again and guarantee that for the next, 23 years. But before we go on, please do follow us, like, subscribe. You can interact with us on these various platforms, including YouTube. That's the most important one at the bottom. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, where this channel is where we show where we Wonder World Sports Radio is, and our Twitter handles are there. Please don't DM us with hate mail about this, because I feel I'm about to get hate mail from everybody. So let's start with this. Sunday, the clubs came out. Well, 12 clubs in Europe came out with a statement saying that they are forming a breakaway league, a European Super League of sorts that guarantees them that they will not leave Europe, or that guarantees them playing in Europe for the next 23 years. That's how long this thing was signed. It was signed on Saturday by the major owners of those clubs. It's 6 English clubs. That is United, City, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal. You can ask many questions why. And also, what's the last team? It's Chelsea. Liverpool. Yes, Liverpool. And obviously, you got the 3 teams from Italy: Juventus, AC Milan, and Inter. And you've also got the 3 teams in Spain, being Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atleti. So what this effectively felt like was a gut punch to UEFA, who were going to announce their new 36-team UEFA Champions League starting in 2024 to try and help get more revenue back in. But many people feel this was an attack on football around Europe, on smaller clubs, because these bigger clubs know that all these leagues run on them, and by them leaving and starting their own thing and creating a closed shop, that you would be effectively, it's a greedy move and being selfish, and there's no longer that let's take care of each other solidarity that was there. That's on the side of the small clubs. The bigger clubs are like, we've gone through the pandemic. We've struggled. And in the pandemic, it was every man for himself. And somehow, and Pep Guardiola said that in a press conference, that you need to take care of yourself, which was a very surprising, but we'll talk about what Pep said. And then now they're trying to get as much revenue as possible, because they know they're the cash cows. They're the geese that lays the golden egg. And they want to get the maximum of it, because they are tired of UEFA doing it. They think UEFA is suboptimal in getting these rights. And so now they are going out on their own, creating the Super League, American style, that guarantees them, and this is the most important thing, it guarantees them cash flow throughout these 23 years. It helps with the valuations, because now you have a proper, obviously you guys are all finance guys next to me, discounted cash flows, pushing up that market value. And you know that every season, this is what I'm going to get, regardless of whatever happens in your domestic season. What I must say is that these teams are not leaving their domestic leagues, but they just don't want to play the Champions League. They want to start something new. They want to be their own club. And so I'm for it. I think it's great. I think it will help bring a lot more money into the game. If I look at the NFL, the biggest sport in America, the NFL signed $130 billion rights deal for 10 years. That's $10 billion a year. UEFA is busy playing with $2 billion for the world's biggest sport. And so one of those ways is you need to find a way to get your best teams, or your money makers, to play every single year. Yes, it takes away the merit. Yes, it takes away the whole competition aspect of it. But UEFA needed to find a way to try and make and profit off of these clubs and get this money back to these clubs. They haven't been able to, and now with the coming in of all these billionaires around the world and these American owners, this American model is coming in where the teams are going to find a way to sell these rights to get as much more. And I'm happy because in that situation, everybody wins. The players win, the clubs win. And yes, there's a solidarity payment, and they need to figure out a way to try and make sure that they keep the pyramid going with the money that comes in. But for me, that's where I'm going to start, because I'm going to ask AB what he thinks of all of this, because that's my first thing. I'm happy. I'm excited because I think it's pushing. It's giving soccer that impetus, that next jolt to that money, to that honeypot.
So yeah, thanks, Paul. It's a really good point, and you've raised proper pros here in terms of the clubs being able to sustainably continue their business going forward and become these powerhouse sort of franchises, and really have more control and more pulling power and taking football, which is the biggest sport in the world, to an even bigger stage, the stage that you see that the NFL guys are on at the moment. But I'm a little bit worried about what happens to the clubs who aren't involved in this competition. What happens to, and let's just focus on England now. What happens to the Leicesters, the West Hams, the Evertons, guys who are really performing well and have done well in the last 5 years, whereas your traditional, or let's not call them the traditional, let's call them the big six, haven't done well. I mean, Man United, I can speak to this personally, have only qualified for the Champions League in the last, including this season, 2 seasons. They don't really have a right to be in terms of Europe's top 12 clubs or top 20 clubs at present. So what's going to happen to these small clubs? Are they just going to be, forgone? Are players like Jamie Vardy, Harvey Barnes, Declan Rice just going to be forgotten in this sort of, I want to say, B league of this? If you're not in the Super League, then really the world is basically saying you don't really matter. Is this going to be now a feeding system? Is there going to be a B Super League where there's going to be an inspirational element? Because right now there is no inspirational element. Like, why would a team like Leicester, looking at this, worry about playing the next 6 games of the league when there is not going to be a traditional Champions League anymore? What is going to happen to the pyramid system? Poor Norwich, we joke that, yes, they've been promoted, but they're going to get relegated, in a year's time. But Leicester were relegated in 2008, and then 6-7 years later, or whenever, they won the league. Where is the fairy tale stuff going to be? What is going to happen to the teams like Porto and Ajax, who have, Porto weren't really a powerhouse, but they won the Champions League. They beat United at Old Trafford. These nights aren't going to happen anymore. That Ajax team that did so well and then got knocked out by some underperforming London club that shouldn't have been in that final. But yeah, it's where's the magic of Europe going to go when you're just going to have your traditional or your big clubs playing against each other, and that's the problem that I have.
So I think one of my points around this was that I think a lot of people are looking at what the people in Europe want to see, and they're forgetting that these clubs have global appeal. And I won't lie to you, as an Arsenal fan, I'm excited because you get to play the bigger teams, and you're guaranteed to play the bigger teams every year. And because we're small in this pyramid of 12, it kind of feels like that aspirational element of, okay, every season I'm guaranteed a Barcelona to come to the Emirates, guaranteed Real Madrid to come to the Emirates. And that is TV gold, not just for the fans in the stadium, but it's TV gold to be sold to every single corner of the globe, where all these 12 teams have fans in abundance. Like, quite frankly, I think people in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa are hoping that this thing happens, because I think outside of the Premier League, and that's the other thing with the Champions League, it's been quite stale over the past couple of years. A lot of group guys, as much as I love Shakhtar Donetsk, and I think they're my Eastern European team, I don't want to see them playing all the time. Like, it's great to have a Cinderella story, but guys, Shakhtar doesn't bring money in. But Deed, Where do you sit on this? Obviously, Tottenham got close to winning the Champions League. There's that whole aspirational element about the Champions League. Hey, dude, we also got close to winning the Champions League. There's nothing else that I can do.
I mean, my point of view is everyone's looking at the teams that have gone on it and are basing it on merit and saying, oh, but you're not a super team, so you shouldn't be in there. If we're honest with ourselves, it has nothing to do with how many Champions Leagues you've won, how many Premier Leagues you've won. It's got to do with how much money you got. And literally, if you look at the top 15 most profitable clubs, they literally went, okay, let's phone. Florentino Perez said, okay, cool. Barcelona, let's phone you. See, okay, you in. Cool. United, what? You in. Okay. PSG, you're not in. Cool. Who's on the next? Atletico. Cool. You in. That's all they did. So I get the argument. There's no argument actually for saying Spurs and Arsenal don't belong to be there because they haven't performed. And Gary Neville saying he'd rather watch the San Marino top teams rather than Spurs and Arsenal. I get that, but it's not based on merit. So that's the first thing we need to clear up. So it's purely based on profit. The next thing is everyone, and I read about this not so long ago, like an hour ago, everyone's calling it the European Super League. On their website, they just call it the Super League. No one is saying that this is just a European competition. China is just as profitable and it's just as financially strong, those teams, as anyone else. Could they be one of the next three to come in? Could be.
To be fair, in their website, it says the Super League is a new European competition. So they call it.
So they'll play most of the games in Europe. They won't play them. Obviously, no one wants to go to Bangkok. And
then if you look at the copyright, for example, at the bottom, it says copyright 2021 European Super League Company. Yes. So I'm just saying. It's these small details that separate these things.
Right now, they need 3 more clubs. Right now, they need 3 more clubs. They don't know where they're going to get them, but it could be Al Ahly.
They need 3.
It could be Chiefs.
I mean, I doubt they're coming to Kaiser Chiefs. I doubt it. I don't think so, but who knows? But I think the point is that business and sport, the lines have become blurred, and the lines have been blurred for a while. I think if you have a look at UEFA, they're trying to protect their own pockets, and that's why they developed this new Champions League format. And I think the same can be said for the Premier League, where they also are looking to, protect those top 6 teams. I mean, it was Newcastle's proposed takeover was shut down by the Premier League, and that was arguably to protect the big 6 that kind of went, listen, if you let this, we out, or something like that. So the Premier League, this whole protecting of these teams has happened for a long period of time. And not just because these teams have said, listen, we actually don't need you. Now everyone's arms and they're saying, oh, you're ruining football. So that argument doesn't hold any water to me, because these same institutions that are mocking the teams for ruining football are the same ones that covered their asses for just as long. So that doesn't hold any water to me. The problem is, and I think this is where the lower teams will suffer 100%. And in the local leagues, those will suffer. In that big league, it would make sense for those 12 teams to just stay on there, and it will develop like an NFL sort of format, 100%. The difference between NFL and the Super League is that everyone that plays football in America is in the NFL. So you can create a European Super League and then involve all 5 leagues in England, all 4 leagues in Italy, and then it'll be a Super League like the NFL, but it won't be like that for now. So my point of view is this was going to happen anyway. You've got guys like Inek Group that have a stake in Spurs. They're venture capitalists. They don't care about anything else other than making money. You've got Fenway Sports Group. They came in, invested in Liverpool. For what reason? To make money. United, listed on the stock exchange. Does a sports team need to be listed on the stock exchange? Not really. Juventus, same thing. They're all in it for the money. So can you do anything about it? No. Is it just a factor of business? Yes, it is. So I understand the cons, and it will be detrimental to the greater good of sport, as everyone's getting so passionate about. But can you do anything about it? No. And at the end of the day, business wins. So you can't really do anything about what's going to happen. You just kind of have to.
But then, AB, where do the fans sit? Obviously, Dean's saying business wins, and I'm with him on that side. On the side of, look, guys, it's 3 to 4 times more revenue than you got in the Champions League. If anybody called up, even Newcastle, Mike Ashley would be first one there. Mike Ashley would be persona non grata for everybody, but he'd be sitting there counting his money. So where do these clubs balance that? And I think the biggest issue with all of this is that it's been done under this massive secrecy. And where does that leave the fans, the diehard traditional fans of these big six clubs? Because a lot of, and even in that interview with Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football, they kept on talking about fans across the land, and I kept on saying, but this is a global entity. This is bigger than the UK. Where does that sit? Because on my end here in sunny South Africa, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna watch this. I don't care. Like, if whatever happens, if this Super League happens and Arsenal's playing Manchester United, best believe I'm in my red shirt, I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm swearing at the referee. And so, but like, what did these owners do? Did they incoming? Did they take the heart out of the? Is this like like they've taken the soul of the club away?
I think so. Geez, so many important points there. Amazing. So I think let's talk about the fans first of all. So there's two sets of fans. There are local fans and then there are foreign fans, and we all fall in the latter there. So for the foreign fans, I don't think much is going to change. We'll probably have to. Well, I mean, in South Africa, DSTV will definitely get the rights to.
That's the only thing we worried about from here.
Yeah,
we worried about DSTV getting rights.
It's that. Either it's going to go into Prime, onto Netflix, or some streaming app, be it Disney Plus, HBO Max. Who knows? They're like a million. I mean, that's a different conversation. It might be more expensive, which is just something we have to deal with because it's now the Super League. This is, Super's bigger than Champions. Superman is stronger than, I don't know, Champion the WWE champion. Yeah, Champion Man, whatever. There's no superhero called that. So, look, for the international fans, things are going to be way more expensive. That 1,000 Rand shirt that we're currently paying, I think the Spurs and Arsenal shirts are a lot cheaper now for obvious reasons. We're probably going to be paying double that because why the hell not? Clubs want money, or maybe they'll keep it the same. I think everything is going to be.
We could even get a Super League kit.
Maybe there's going to be a Super League kit, yeah, with the Super League badge and all that nonsense. There's going to be a Super League MVP team. All that Americanized horse shit actually is just
all-star it's going to be there. Let's do this.
Yeah, here we go. It's going to be an all-star game. All that stuff. So the local fans, though, I feel, it's going to probably hit them the most in the sense that because this game is going to be, because everything's going to be more expensive, ticket prices are going to soar. A lot of the local fans, especially for the United side of things, like the season ticket holders, which is about 55,000 or so, are all local guys who've got their season tickets through generations and stuff. They're very traditional football families and fans and things like that. They might step away for whatever reasons, and I can't blame them because they're purists, and this goes against everything that they've sort of stood for back in the European Cup days, all that stuff. I think the fans are going to get impacted in two different ways. To summarize, it's going to be an amazing experience, because now there's more money at it. It's kind of like, it's basically Netflixing football, where you're going to have this huge experience that you never thought you could live without until you've had it. There's going to be behind the scenes stuff. It's going to be incredible, but you're going to pay a lot more for it. When I read that the clubs are pulling away from FIFA 22, immediately that they're going to probably make their own Super League game for rights and all of that, because it's the biggest selling game probably every year, barring the Grand Theft Auto franchise and all that stuff. So it's money. Fans are going to suffer. And then you had another point I can't remember. I don't know.
Oh, yes, the heart and soul. Have these American owners taken away the heart and soul of the British game?
I think the heart and soul was taken away when all these owners came in and bought it at the first place. I think it's long gone. It's just Gary Neville put it quite nicely, where the owners came in, they bought the club because they wanted to invest in a business. they felt lucky to own that badge and to have that badge, being owned by them. But ever since a club has got an owner, it's taken away from that identity of the club. As soon as you take a football club away from the fans, it's not yours anymore. There's no soul in it. The fans can't. The only connection fans have to the players are when they go to games, and that's it. There's no heart and soul anymore, especially in United. I mean, City had no heart and soul, but they don't have fans, so it's fine.
So, Dean, do these big six clubs have a right or have a it's a right to protect their domestic game and protect the other 72 or all of the 72 teams in England, including the conference teams and everything else? Do they have that right, or it's just been unfair on them? Because the other side of the argument has always been it must always look, because Steve Parrish kept on saying, the chairman of Crystal Palace kept on saying that you need to consider everyone below you. Were they derelict in their duty to consider those below them? Or is it one of those situations where, look, guys, we have to make profit? Even though they are making profit, that will always survive. They just were greedy at this point in time.
I think you have to look at it from a business perspective, because that's exactly what these teams are. And if you have a risk in your business, you mitigate that risk. That it's very simple. And the biggest risk to these teams is either getting relegated or not making a Champions League or Europa League competition for the next season. And whether that be not making the Europa League from a Spurs Arsenal perspective, or not making the Champions League from a United Chelsea perspective or Liverpool perspective, that is a risk to your business. We've spoken about it before, where Spurs aren't making Champions League, revenue gone, can't afford better players, club takes a knock. It's a very easy process to follow. So it's a protection. That's what these guys are doing, and they're not looking out for anyone else. And to come back to the point, in business, you don't look after your competitors. You try and nullify them. You take them out. That's exactly what this is. So the whole heart and soul and looking after the people that are standing next to you would be great if we lived in La La Land and there were fairies around. We don't. Simple as that. So you have to avoid the risk of you missing out on revenue, and that's all that this is. So the top six are only, or the 6 teams in Europe that made it into the competition are only there because they had the money to put up and could get involved. That's the only reason. So they need to protect that as best as what they can. And if Everton could have, I don't think anyone, or if they approached Everton and said, do you have the money to do this? I don't think they would have said no, because 3.5 billion going to these teams just for signing up these founding, no one's going to say no. No one in the whole of world football will ever say no. So the teams, I get the guys that are maybe in the championship or, like a lower Premier League team, they're going to lose out because there's no ways they can compete with the teams. But the guys like mid-table that maybe could have got in but didn't crack a nod, those are just spiteful guys. Those guys didn't get invited to the Matric Dons. That's the best.
But the thing is, though, mid-table teams shouldn't be. Mid-table teams shouldn't be getting invited to the Matric Dons. If you're like ninth,
Napoli shouldn't be there. No.
Yeah, or Tottenham or Arsenal.
Okay, we're there.
Whoa. We're there. Let's not get twisted.
But you shouldn't be, because you're a mid-table team.
But okay. So, Abe, let me
that's
ask
the point. It's not based on merit. It's not merit.
So here's the thing, right? We've heard the Premier League say that they are against this. They are going to work with UEFA and all the governments, and now everyone's against them, right? And now everyone's like, yesterday people were threatening bans, and all UEFA came out with threats outside of that new Super League competition. Firstly, the revenue from that new Super League competition is only coming in 2024, and I don't think I think it pales in comparison to what these guys in this Super League are going to get, right? And then also, secondly, if you go if UEFA and these domestic leagues, because these guys are saying we're not letting go of the domestic leagues, so those revenue packages are still there. So the football pyramid in each country will still stay the same. The only difference is that the ability for a team to play in the Champions League and earn that extra 100 million or whatever it is may still be there with these teams away, because UEFA will still have to have a Champions League of sorts. The problem is that because people will be paying for this, broadcast will be paying for the Super League. How much money will UEFA end up getting for broadcast rights for this one? And this is the big issue, because teams have always aspired to play in the Champions League, and now this is the Champions League without the Big 15 or Big 12 or Big 20, assuming that they find the three and they get the five other teams.
Yeah.
What value does it place on the Champions League AB? And also, what value does it place on teams doing well in England? So, for instance, today, Wolves said they won the 2019-2020 Premier League because they finished behind the Big Six, who nobody won. But in that instance, right, like, do teams now in domestic European football still want to play in Europe? Yes, obviously for the more revenue, but does it hold that same gravitas? And then the other question is, this European Super League, whatever final trophy it's going to be, right? Will it automatically become more prestigious, or is it just will it be seen by everybody as no? It's just a rebel league.
No, so I mean, the value of your trophy is based on who you are beating to get to that trophy. It's always been the case. European Cup, Champions League, Premier League, Division 1, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. If the team who won Serie A when Juventus got their points deduction for whatever it was. I don't watch Serie A because it's boring. There will always be an asterisk, just like Liverpool last year. When they had like a 3-month holiday before they could carry on playing their league, there'll always be that asterisk. The thing is, though, like, my worry is because the Super League has all this money. So there's two things. So United, just for it being allowed to play, or just because they got an invite to the dance for the Super League, have so much more money. Okay, wait, maybe United's a bad example. Chelsea,
no, everybody has more money.
No, I'm saying, but the United's owners will take the money to take more loans and pay off the debt. So that's a bad example. Let's go with Chelsea. Yeah. So Chelsea will get more money. They'll invest more in buying amazing players, and then they'll go and play in the Premier League with their third string team, which is still amazing and will dominate because of this undue benefit that they've got just because they're a rich club. So it's not a level playing field, and no one, Aston Villa, for example, could not ever get that money, no matter what they did. Villa could go and win every single game in the Premier League, but still won't get an invite to the dance to earn that sort of money because it just can't happen.
It's not fair.
So there's that.
But has that not been happening already? Has that not been happening already? Take PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona, all these guys. They can only be at the top because they are the guys that can afford to buy the players. Fine, it's not the 3.5 billion players. They can buy now bigger, more superstars. But Spain spending 220 million, okay, PSG aren't involved, but 220 million pounds for Neymar. That's not normal. Same as 97 for Pogba. Not normal.
And this comes down to fair play, which we know FIFA fair play doesn't work. And maybe this is the Super League is just a byproduct of FIFA fair play failing, because the clubs are saying, well,
the FFP.
You gave us this rule. Some clubs followed it, some clubs didn't. You didn't punish them, so now we're just going to carry on. Yeah. No, I mean, United.
And now we're getting rewarded for it somehow.
Exactly.
And not going to go.
Maybe there's that.
So some of the numbers coming out of the Financial Times article that's been swirling around today says that obviously of that 400 million they're going to receive annually, the clubs, they have agreed in the term sheets to spend 55% of that money into players and into player personnel and so salaries, agents, and also transfers, right? That's 200 million.
Agents. Yeah. Wow.
No, guys, in America, being an agent is fun times. It's beautiful. So that's the big one. And then obviously some of those clubs are all in debt, and that's what that 3.5 billion is going to go and squash Barcelona as well, because like these teams fell. If Barcelona fell for bankruptcy last year, that was the death of La Liga. That's what it was. But moving on to the players, right? Because everyone's looking at the players, everyone's looking at what they're going to do. UEFA and FIFA want to ban the players from playing in the World Cup and in Euros. Where do you guys stand on that? So on my end, I am pro player. So I am pro anything that makes a player become the richest man he can be, because he is consuming a sport that I watch, and if I am paying towards his salary, I best believe he must get as much money as he wants. So I'm always in the NBA and the NFL. If guys want more money, take the bag, secure the bag. But now we're seeing a group of supporters and everyone asking these players to speak out against this league. And I just kind of feel a little bit conflicted because, A, yes, the players, they're employees, so they're speaking up against their bosses. And then also, if this thing actually does work, they're speaking out against something that they might lose out on and watch their friends get these astronomical figures. Like if I look at the NBA and I look at the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, who's like the MVP of the NFL,
Why you have to mention Mahomes, of all people?
Because Brady takes pay cuts. Brady's getting paid like the 20th quarterback, but the person who's been paid number one is thingy. It's that Green Bay guy, who does Jeopardy now, Aaron Rodgers. Yes, Aaron Rodgers. Him and Russell Wilson earn close to $50 million a year. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang at Arsenal's earning 13. Guys are earning, I think soccer players are probably, I know Messi with all the endorsements gets close to that and gets a little bit more. But the middle player in the NBA and the NFL earn between $3 and $5 and $6 million a year. And that's pretty much what you want. You want to get that, and you want to get that for a very long time. So AB, where do you stand on the players? Should they speak out? Should we see Marcus Rashford's said football fans? Should they speak out? What must they do?
So I've always said this. Players have a bigger responsibility, unfortunately, than just being a sportsman. Because as a sportsman, you have such an impact on children. You need to be better than normal people. You need to be this role model that sort of inspires the young generation, because they're gonna want to be like you, like Marcus Rashford. As for them being compensated, they need to get the best and the most money they can, but also live within this ethical barrier. And I feel like there will be a lot of players who know or have friends with guys who are in these lower league teams or teams even in the Premier League, just not invited to the party, who understand that because they're going to be involved in a Super League sort of environment, their wage bill is going to just triple, perhaps, maybe even double. And they have to ask themselves, yes, I'm benefiting, but what does that mean for the guys below me? Are my colleagues going to get a pay cut because suddenly, revenues are decreasing, the broadcast revenue is down, sponsors don't want to pay those little clubs anymore. Are they going to take a hit below? And we don't know that yet. It's most likely it will, because it's unsustainable to have such high revenues in two leagues when one league is now going to be inferior. Yeah, it's rough. And I feel like players don't know what to do, because now they didn't ask for this. They were not part of these discussions, and they're just doing a job. And suddenly new owners have come in, have schemed in the darkness, and have been greedy with what they want, and have made this plan and are carrying on.
Dean, should they boycott? Can a boycott of any fixtures from now until the end of the season be what it takes to stop this thing from happening?
No, I don't think they should boycott, because I think the point that AB made is correct. I think it's not like Harry Kane and Leo Messi and Ronaldo got together and were like, guys, let's form a Super League. This was done probably without them maybe even being told. And it's just a matter of being there. I mean, let's be real. Danny Rose was not involved in Spurs' agreement to come into a Super League. They are just there as a byproduct, okay? So the players don't need to do anything. I think what they need to do is they need to show a bit of pride, actually. I think they need to show the fans that, look, this is going on, and this is not, whatever their position is, that they may not agree with it from a PR perspective, but we still have pride in this football club. We still play for the pride of the fans. That's not going to change. And I think that's the way that the players should go about it. I saw Gary Neville saying yesterday that Leeds should walk off the pitch and just let Liverpool run rampant. I mean, that's not going to achieve anything. That's just going to ruin the game, and no one wants to see that. And that guy's the most deluded person in the world. So everything he says, I don't know. So the players aren't going to influence these clubs. I mean, the decision's been made. I think from what we've seen, those contracts are pretty watertight. I know there's allegations of some teams getting cold feet, whatever it is. I don't think it's going to happen. I think whatever the decision is now, players have to say, okay, this is what it is. And who's to say that? I get AB's point of you carrying a little bit more weight and you have to be like the superstar to the children. But by being in a Super League, perhaps you could, you inspire a greater generation of people now you are seeing, instead of watching a Brighton versus Burnley game on a Saturday, you're now watching the Juventus City game where you do have the best of the best playing against the best of the best. And looking at it there's a lot of downside, but you have to look at the other side of the coin and say, well, maybe there's a good side. It'll bring up that competitive spirit. It'll make people want to go for it even more. We've always had those arguments of no one wants to play for the Carabao Cup, which, let's be honest, is a very prestigious tournament.
For you, yes. For you, Dean, always
very prestigious tournament.
And it could be the last time you see the Carabao Cup, by the way. So.
Exactly. But everyone used to say it's a nothing cup and no one plays their full strength and whatever. And those kind of things won't exist anymore in the Super League. You're going to want to play your top team, maybe. And that's the kind of thing that will hold this competition, in my view, in higher regard. And it will be the pinnacle of what sports fans want to see, as though it might ruin the rest of the teams, and 100% understand all those arguments. The pinnacle of sport will get better because of this. And you have, like I said, there's a lot of bad, but you can't ignore the good. That's the problem.
Yes. So let's talk about what actually happened, what got these clubs to being big. And I think that's the one thing that people need to necessarily understand. And one of the reasons why Florentino Perez, I think he was the mastermind and all the guys wanted to have a piece. In 92, the Premier League had their moment. They had their breakaway. The big five at the time, Everton was included. Sorry, Chelsea. Pulled out, and sorry, Spurs, I think. Pulled out and wanted to start this Premier League that you know and love today. The 20 billion pound a year Premier League. And what then ensued was the further professionalization of the game. It brought money into it. And what it did for the big clubs, and any club that excelled in that period up until now, i.e. Chelsea, Manchester City, Tottenham, it helped increase the market values of these clubs, make them so attractive and so valuable that it was no longer a mom and pop club owned by the richest person in your city or in your town. It now could only be owned by the billionaires. And so they have in Sky and ITV, BBC, and everybody else having monopolized the coverage, even across Europe, buying all the rights to Champions League and everything else, giving us rights restrictions. It's very funny on Twitter now. We're seeing Sky Sports coverage without any restrictions here in the south of Africa, which is beautiful, but it says a lot about what's going on. AB, are they not sour? Are the broadcasters at Sky and BBC and everywhere else who own the rights to domestic, are they not sour?
I don't even think they're sour. I think they're scared. Because now there's this fresh canvas for a beautiful product that doesn't exist, that's actually on paper better than anything Sky, ITV, BBC, whoever have dreamt about, but they're not invited because the clubs now want to take that broadcasting or the league itself, whatever. They want to create their own platform that they can distribute this content across. And we're in the age of content now. We're in the age of channels, of subscription-based revenue, all that stuff, because it's sustainable. And Sky are terrified. ITV are terrified because they currently are their own monopoly. They have taken football away from the public, where they charge you pay-per-views on Saturday or Saturday during the day.
£12 to watch Burnley and Brighton.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nonsense. I mean, there's certain kickoff slots that you can't have access to if you live in certain regions and you have to pay extra. It's absolutely nonsense. And that is a problem with the current system that I'm glad is going to be forced to change because of this, because they have screwed the public for far too long, just because of greed. So they deserve to suffer in this regard. And I think that's why they're now trying to gain some support for this anti-Super League movement by being so vocal on Twitter and on the socials and showing us all this content. Like Monday Night Football last night should not have been as easily accessible to us as it has been. I've never watched Monday Night Football until yesterday, being almost live. It's crazy. But yeah, they're scared. And yeah, their cash cow is soon going, because the Premier League won't be what it used to be if the Super League happens. If I was Ollie, or if I was Ryan Mason, and I can speak to Ryan Mason because yeah, I mean, I just need to put myself a year younger. I wouldn't be playing Harry Kane in the Premier League if I'm going to be playing Real Madrid next week. Hell no.
Yes, and there was no threat that I'm not going to enter into Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Why? I'll use it as a chilled sort of system, because the Premier League won't be as important. There's nothing Premier about that league anymore, when your entire competition is going to be on Wednesdays and Tuesdays or whenever. Maybe can they please play games on Thursdays? Please, at least Thursday football would be hallowed again.
Hey, look, they can sell that to Amazon, because Amazon went buck wild with the NFL. They entered into sports this year, live sports this year, and they signed one of the bigger deals I've seen with the NFL for Thursday night football. And Thursday night football wasn't great. It's not traditionally great. It's always like the random derbies of teams that aren't doing that well, but they still get money, and people watch. But from my perspective here is that, and I'm going to ask you, Dean, is that not what the reason why people are fighting is that the Premier League is going to be so watered down that they're going to lose the rights. They're going to be forced away from Saturday or forced into some awkward times on Saturdays, and the Super League might just take over and become a fully fledged European league that plays on weekends. Is that the reason why everyone's trying to stop this?
100%. That's exactly, and I think AB hit the nail on the head there. Why would any of these teams play their top players in that league, and why would anyone want to watch it on TV? That's exactly the point. And you're sitting at any of those clubs. You're in that European Super League. You now use the Premier League as an academy training session, because the money won't be as good. You're going to develop your players in a more competitive sort of area, and then they move into the Super League. That's the way I see it working for definitely the 6 clubs in England, and then a little bit less so for Italy and Spain. But I mean, the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, I don't think they've slept since Sunday. Those guys at the top are having a heart attack. They are so worried about the fact that they are going to lose their money. And let's be honest, these guys are just worried about the fact that they can't buy a third boat, that they just have to settle for the 2 yachts that they have. These aren't poor people that run these leagues either. So it's also their own greed. They're just worried about the fact that they can't take a 11-month European holiday or overseas holiday compared to a 12-month one. So I don't feel any remorse for these guys. They are also a victim of their own choices that they made. They wanted to do this and let all this investment and money flow into the Premier League. They wanted to let the Qatari oil money come in and buy City. They wanted Roman Abramovich's Russian money to come in and buy Chelsea. You're going to pay the costs eventually. So the fact that they've now said, okay, cool, lack of thanks, I'm going to go make my own league, now it's a problem. So it's a case of they got comfortable. And we've seen it throughout history. When you get comfortable, bad things are going to happen. It's the reason why we don't use a Nokia 3310 anymore. got comfortable. So it's exactly the same thing. Things move on, and you can either go with it or you try fight against it. And that's where these guys, they're trying to throw everything they have against it, but ultimately, I don't think anything's going to happen.
So, AB, what happens now? What does UEFA, the FA, have in their pocket to stop this thing with FIFA? We're hearing bans, we're hearing all these threats. Should they ban these clubs from it and try rebuild?
Well, so if I was in charge of the FA, and we know now that the 14 clubs, or they voted against this. They have no rights. No one really cares about what they say, clearly. It's down to the only people who can stop it are the 6 English clubs themselves, and the other 12. Well, other 14
Six.
clubs. Yeah, but other 14 total. They're the only guys who can stop it. Banning United, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs from the rest of the Premier League or the rest of the Champions League or Europa League is only going to hurt your competition, and it's only going to fuel those 6 clubs from wanting to leave, because any action that is malicious, you don't respond to malice, which is what they're seeing this Super League as, with malice. It's not going to do them well. You have to get them all into a room, and you have to mediate this thing and say, listen, we understand you're unhappy with the current system. Why? Can we come to a compromise? But like it or not, the Super League is staying. It apparently is going to cost teams to breach their contracts with the Super League billions, based on something I read on the internet. So it has to be true, obviously. These clubs are going to the Super League because they do not have billions. Now they want to make billions. So the Super League is here to stay. And unfortunately, if you ban guys from the Premier League, they'll be like, cool, thanks very much for that. You're just making me more exclusive. I'm now going to take my squad of 25, only train for 1 match a week, which I'll happily love, because currently we're playing twice a week. I'm going to sell a lot of my unwanted players, or just cancel their contract, because now I have money to pay them off, and I'm going to go and sign your best players. I'm going to take Declan Rice away from Villa. I'm going to take Jack Grealish away from Villa. I'm going to take Calvert-Lewin away, Hammers away, and you're going to be left with the league full of nothing players, and that's going to be on you. And I'm going to chill. So it's not in their best interest to ban them or anything like that. It's just emotional threats right now, but they'll end up cutting off their nose to spite their face. So yeah, it's tough.
Dean, is there a middle ground? Is there somewhere in the middle? I see a situation where UEFA, yes, they don't want to let go of 2.4 billion, which is like half of their revenue. But I do see a situation where the clubs will say, we want to procure our own rights for our own home games. And if they do that, like it could be lucrative for each club. Is there a middle ground, or is it just do you think that these men will not see eye to eye, and we need to get ourselves ready for a Super League pretty much early as next year, probably?
Yeah, I think the concept of a middle ground is I think it's a little bit too little, too late. I think these guys probably try to say, and look at the coaches. They've spoken out about how much football they're playing, how much, it's all because of the TV rights and all of this. Nothing's happened. So I think the time to listen was probably a lot earlier than this reaction. And I think it might just be a little bit too far gone. I think AB's point is exactly right. I think if they go ahead and not ban players, I mean, you want to talk about asterisks against their name. Can you imagine PSG win the Champions League now by default? I mean, that's the biggest asterisk in the history of football. So I don't think they can go down that route. But also, UEFA has to try and do something. And unfortunately, I think they're going to have to cower up to these guys now and try. That's the best they could probably do. And I don't know if it's some sort of obscene plan where they can try and combine tournaments, but I don't see that happening. I was thinking of maybe you have like your Super League squad and then you have your local league squad, but that's also ruining the game because exactly like that, you're going to buy all the average players or medium to good players and just develop them in your own side. So I don't see how we can get a mixture of everything right now. I don't see. I mean, how's Europa League going to compare with how they're going to chat and try and get Granada, teams like that, and get them into the Super League? There's no ways those guys hold any weight, and the Super League knows that, so they're going to do what they want. And it's one of those cases of you sit there and you go, well, you could have done something about it. Something could have been done before this reaction, and you didn't do it. So now you're suffering the consequences. And that whole new Champions League system and things like that, it doesn't work. It's not going to be good for the game of football. Even if the Super League didn't happen, that would have just been even more matches and even more money that goes to this UEFA, and they just wouldn't do anything about it again. So yeah, it's gone in my mind. It's gone.
The fight for revenue. That's what it is. Gents, what are your final words on this? I'm going to start with you, Dean. What do you think? What do you think will happen? Because we're all here hearing all these rumors. Sky is starting on propaganda against this. The English government's going to try ban visas. They're going to try legislate something with Europe, whom they left, to try and sort this thing out. It's, I think, the first time I've seen politicians fight for something so important. And I just kind of wish they did that for racism, but that's for me. And Patrick Bamford. But what do you think?
I think best case scenario, and I was thinking about this yesterday. The Super League has now said, okay, here's a bunch of money. There's 50% that you're allowed to spend on players. But I think if what world football is worried about is the development of the game in these lower leagues and teams kind of struggling to get along, I think if they want to try and satisfy some of that, they say, okay, 50% for players, but maybe then 10 or 15, 20% on that you spend on developing football in your country. You put it in grassroots structures.
Yeah. So the structure does include a 400 million solidarity payment to smaller clubs, leagues, and competitions in and around Europe. I still think it's a little bit small. So if I was UEFA, I'd want quite a lot. More, I don't know, closer to $1 billion actually, for them leaving. But that's me. But there is some money. There is some money set aside.
So I think if you want to satisfy that argument, and I think that'll kind of put a lot of the guys in their place to say, okay, the game's not gone. We can kind of still look at developing these teams and these sort of players, because at the end of the day, Ronaldo doesn't live forever. Harry Kane doesn't live forever. You have to find the new guys, and they have to come from somewhere. It's not like they just pop out of nowhere. So you have to look to develop the up-and-coming guys in the grassroots and those teams in the Premier League or the league that I think are now going to become the fishing pond that you look to, that sort of development squad. So I think that's where it's going to go. But in terms of here and now, I think the players continue to play football the way they've always played football. I think you don't now walk off a pitch. You don't throw your hands in the air and refuse to play. I think you still show the supporters that you still got pride in your heart and you're still playing for the crest that's on your chest when you walk onto that pitch. So I think that's an important factor, and I would much rather see players coming out and saying that rather than saying football's nothing without the fans. I think we know that, but say that you're still going to fight for us. Say that you're still playing for us. That's what I think people need to see, and I think that's what players should do from now on. I think also, as we've seen throughout history with the game and everything else, it's a case of new things happen all the time, and it's a case of adapt or fall behind. And now this situation has come about because of consequences of previous actions. You now have to look at what you can do about it rather than trying to fight it. And that means adapting to this new Super League. Clubs need to acknowledge that this is what is going to happen, and how can we play a bigger role? How can we get involved? How can we make this still work for us? Because there's a positive and negatives to everything. You just have to try and find it. So that's what I would like to see. I think that'll protect the sport as well. Although it's still tough to say you're protecting football at the moment, but I think that's the best case for the game as well as business in sport, because it's not going to go anywhere. We can't say, oh, okay, let's not let any financial investments come along, because I don't see Cyrus complaining when Abramovich came in. He wasn't complaining the fact that he could now go and buy new players. Same with City. They won the league. They weren't saying, "Oh yeah, but it's not lacquer because previously we couldn't buy Aguero, now we can, so it actually doesn't count." No one in the history has ever said that. So you have to allow for business in football, and this is one of the consequences. So kind of adapt or fall away.
AB, I know you were on the side of not happy about this. What happens next? How is there a way that they can stop this, or is it one of the situations where they have to find a way to work around it, or bring people to the table?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be able to stop. You've got some of the best business minds who have been scheming about this for years, and they've announced it now because they're happy. Their business plan is sound. They're sorted. This product will be so successful. I actually think what's going to happen is that it's going to launch. There's going to be unhappiness about it, rightfully so, as we've discussed. But I think world football or European football will have to adapt to incorporate the Super League as I don't want to say Premier League, but the main sort of club competition in the world. Effectively what the Champions League is right now. I think the Champions League will fall away. I feel like the Europa League will fall away. And I feel like UEFA may just collapse. And I think the only way UEFA can somehow survive is that if they incorporate the Super League somehow, but UEFA are the problem of the Champions League and the Europa League. UEFA have led to this. Their mismanagement, I don't even want to talk about UEFA. They're just terrible. But I feel like and I think fans would be a lot happier if the Super League somehow were a bit more transparent on how they are going to award these merit teams in there. Are they going to be the best performing team in a league, excluding Super League teams? And I think maybe that will ease the burden so that your Leicesters and your West Hams will know, cool, I can potentially get a piece of that pie if I do X, Y, and Z. And maybe if they increase the limits, maybe if they increase the limits from 5 teams to 10 teams, or have 30 leagues or 30 teams in the Super League, or 24, whatever. I feel like that might be a little bit more of a compromise, but I think it's here to stay, and I think that we just need to get used to it. And I think I'm sad to say this, but I think that once the dust has settled and we've all calmed down a bit, because we love to react as people these days, I think we'll actually quite enjoy it. I mean, I will love to see United play Barcelona twice a year and hopefully beat Barcelona twice a year.
I can't wait for Spurs to win this thing.
So, look, my end is that I think they knew that, and this is, as Dean says, adapt or die. For years, many knew that these 15 teams, and there's some in and around there who also bring in the revenue, could have the possibility to go. It's not the first time I've heard of a Super League. I heard it a couple of years ago, and rumors have been coming up, but nothing was done about it. So I'm with Dean on that one. I think that this model works. It brings more money into the game. Yes, for the bigger clubs, but also it will end up having to expand because they can't play amongst themselves. And as I know, these guys, as greedy as they are, you have more teams, you demand more money, and that means more slots and more eyeballs, and you might just end up having just like an NFL model. They play once a week, and they play in their conference, and they play some teams across conferences for those tastier games, and it culminates into, and they're going to hate me for it, the Super Bowl-esque situation where it's the biggest game on the planet. Like, and that's what these owners are seeing. That's what I'm seeing. This is the most widely watched sport in the world, the most loved continent in terms of football, and why not go about and do this? Yes, it's going to have some teething problems, and it's going to be fought over, and yes, there'll still be the domestic leagues still being played, but just like the NBA model, it's the NBA has the best basketball players in the world. You will find a way to get the best footballers playing for these 15, 20 as you go along. And that merit system, if I was a club in any of those other leagues, and I was a Napoli, if I was an AS Roma, if I was a Leicester, if I was an Ajax, if I was who else? Even a Lyon in France, I would get my shit in order. I would get my ducks in a row. I would try and become the biggest as global a brand, and that's why I felt sorry for Leicester, because Leicester were about to become that global brand. The Premier League is the best league in the world, and they've been gaining a lot of fans. And if they did this in 2024, I bet your bottom dollar Leicester would have been in this thing. And it's just for teams to try and figure out other ways to work on this revenue model that you currently have with Sky and BT, but also try figure out a way to become a global brand, so you can then go to them and say, I want that extra spot that you're giving me. And when they say expansion, you're the first one to be looked at, because that is what is going to bring you a lot more money. It's going to keep you alive in this game. And what it's done now, it's a haves and a have-nots. And what these 15 clubs have done is they've made the have-nots fight for scraps. And you need to be the better have-not to win this game. And so that's where I'm sitting. I understand they're going to be fighting. I understand it's going to be tough. I say the UEFA should ask for more money for these clubs leaving, reparations somehow.
Yep.
UEFA should ask should not necessarily exclude them, but bring them in and say that, look, we can give you media rights, we can legitimize this thing, and we'll take money off of that. And UEFA should force them to make sure that, and these domestic leagues also should force them to always play those Super League players on a Saturday. They need to try and maintain that standard, and they need to force them to do that. And it's going to be a lot of trust. It's going to be a lot of negotiations, but a solution can be found. It's just that I'm not a fan of how these owners did this, but they are billionaires. And for me to say that they are stupid and they don't know, while I'm just chilling here with, I don't know, however many cents in my pocket, like these guys know what this thing is about. And I think they've just literally taken world football into another realm. And it's interesting because obviously MLS will never reach that realm. Only European football can. And America has always been envious of the European game. The only thing they've always said is that they've always thought that the NFL was bigger. And now these 15 clubs are going to prove to them that actually this is the proper football, not what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited. The drama is also intriguing because it gives us content, which is awesome. I just hope that the players get paid. That's the most important thing. The players must always get paid. And the fans should also. I know the prices will come up. The club should actually try and keep the prices at a minimum, because who doesn't want to go and travel with United to the new camp every year? Who does?
Or even reduce the price, because now you've got so much more revenue. You can afford to reduce kits. You need.
If you want to win fans over.
Yeah.
Simple.
If I was Ed Woodward, I'd be trying to be like, cool. There's been backlash. We need to win the fans over.
And our season ticket holders get a 20% discount. Our previous season ticket holders get a 20% discount.
And you paint UEFA as the evil guys. You paint Sky as the evil guys. You do all of that, because it's a propaganda war now. And if you can win those fans over, you're fine.
The only problem is Florentino Perez is building one of the most incredible stadiums on earth, and he's trying to deny.
After the Spurs stadium, obviously. That's the best stadium in the world.
The Bernabeu is going to be a dome. That's how incredible it's going to be. And he's trying to deny. He doesn't want smaller teams entering there. So I'm very thankful to Florentino Perez for allowing Arsenal and Tottenham into this, because I want to go to the Bernabeu. But yeah. Gents, thank you very much. That is the Super League. We might have more on it if something happens. If they ban the clubs, which I hope they don't, because they'll just be shooting themselves in the foot. But thank you very much, AB. Thank you very much, Dean. It's going to start a lot of debate, but it's fine, because that's what we want. We want discussion. So We'll be back again later this week with our normal cheap seats. We might talk about this again. Who knows? But yeah, so thank you very much.
There's bigger things to talk about there, Paul. Way bigger things to talk about.
Yes, we do have bigger things, i.e. the Carabao Cup. But thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. And our viewers on the channel. Please remember to like and subscribe our YouTube channel and all our platforms that we have at One World Sports Radio. From myself, Mpo, and AB, it's enough about the Super League now. Have a good evening, have a good day, a good week. Le sale. Kakahiso.